Questions are now emerging from both Democrats and Republicans after documents marked classified were discovered at the Indiana home of former Vice President Mike Pence. According to his lawyer, a, quote, small amount of material was found at Pence's home and then turned over to the FBI. His attorney told federal officials the former vice president was unaware of the documents at his house. For more on this and the rest of the day's news in Washington, CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us from Capitol Hill. Scott, thanks for being here. Just a few minutes ago, the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, spoke with several U.S. senators about this documents issue, whether it's with former Vice President Mike Pence, President Biden, or former President Donald Trump. What are they learning from the DNI?
They're saying unequivocally they're not learning enough or not learning much. This was a closed-door briefing, and according to senators, as they walked out of this briefing with the Director of National Intelligence, there was a shield of sorts put over the information that they were not disclosing key details, citing the open or imminent special counsel investigations ordered by the U.S. Justice Department. So a lot of dissatisfied senators walking out. And as you know, there's no more effective or efficient way to frustrate a member of Congress than to deny them information to which they feel entitled. And there's a sense here among the Republicans walking out of the room that they should get more information about what was found, what might have been exposed, what damage might have been incurred, and that they're not getting the information. We've heard Democrats through the day underscore the significance of the issue, acknowledging this is a pressing issue. But I got to tell you, Bob, ever since the revelation about the documents in Indiana at the home of the former vice president, a lot of the criticism has been more muted or disoriented, as if both parties now have so much skin in the game, each, that they're not sure how to weaponize this information politically.
Turning to the debt limit, Scott, it looks like a showdown is certainly possible over federal spending, but many Republicans are beginning to rule out fighting for changes to Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. So what do they want to put on the table as these talks develop?
It's really stood out over the last 24 hours how Republicans are messaging that they will not insist upon cuts to Social Security or Medicare as they seek spending cuts before agreeing to raise the debt ceiling. So they're trying to message on that. But they're also being unambiguous. They want cuts required before they give their votes. Now, everybody in the Senate, both parties, has directed attention to the House Republicans, saying it's their show, they've got to move first. Republicans and Democrats in the Senate both agree it's the House Republicans' move. We spoke with one of the House Republicans who earlier this month held out his vote for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker. I asked him if he'd hold out his vote on a debt ceiling increase, too. Here's what he had to say about himself and his colleagues. You think there are 5 or 6 other House Republicans who would say absolutely no clean debt ceiling increase like yourself?
Oh, there are probably many more than that. That's why we're not going to have a clean debt ceiling coming out of the House of Representatives.
It would need something else with it.
Absolutely. And again, the responsible thing is to say, look, if we're going to increase the credit card limit, we've got to put controls on the spending.
Republican Andy Harris of Maryland, member of the House Freedom Caucus. One thing I'll note, Dr. Harris did mention the possibility that money could be saved or cut from some of the COVID programs that may have money remaining or may have infused themselves into other programs like the food stamp program, the SNAP program. He's putting a possible cut out in the air. A lot of other Republicans have yet to do that. And senators have said, once Republicans put something on the floor and vote on it and show they can get votes, then there's room for negotiation and meetings, or at least discussions about meetings and negotiations.
Speaking of senators, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, a favorite of many progressives, is meeting with President Biden today as he prepares to chair the Senate Health Committee. This is a signal that the left is standing with President Biden as he faces some criticism over his handling of these documents and other issues. And it's been notable in recent days that it is the centrist Democrats, like Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and not the progressives, like Senator Bernie Sanders and others, who have been tough on this White House. What do you make of that?
I think it's noteworthy. It underscores something, that there is a Democratic Party that's trying to demonstrate it functions, that it's organized and gets things done, and they can work in lockstep on things. Senator Sanders meeting with the president, I think, personifies that effort. What Democrats have been doing over the past 48 hours is opening their news conferences, opening their remarks to reporters by saying, we're unified. We're functioning, drawing a contrast with what we've seen out of House Republicans out of the gates this Congress. A halted speaker election and committees not yet formally organized. That's, I think, a personification of it, having Senator Sanders meet with the president.
And Scott, it's also perhaps a sign that the left of the Democratic Party wants to be with the president as he negotiates this debt limit agreement. Left-leaning Democrats do not want to see any cuts on the table. And for the president to meet with Sanders, it shows that he's not leaning toward any kind of deal at this point. The Democratic line still seems to be a clean debt limit extension, period. No?
Yeah, and what's more, at this moment, because of that, it still seems like these two sides are talking past each other. They're not having the same conversation or the same argument. Democrats are trying to be emphatic that there's no negotiating over the debt ceiling. It's too dangerous to do so. Republicans, like Andy Harris of Maryland, saying we need this and this and this potentially before we vote to raise the debt ceiling. So this is a different conversation the two sides are having. Until they get on the same plane, this is likely not to progress, and we get closer and closer to the D-date of late spring.
And final thought here, Scott. Does this end ultimately with House Republicans, a few of them at least, breaking with Speaker McCarthy and going with the Democrats on a clean hike?
Feels very much like we're on a trajectory towards some Democrats voting for something to get it past the House involving the debt ceiling. Andy Harris says there's not 5 or 6 votes in his conference to do this clean, and it has to be clean. Well, that's going to require some unique combination of Democrats and Republicans, a political complexion of which we've yet to see.
It's going to be intriguing. Where do Republicans in the House find leverage as this all unfolds? Scott MacFarlane, thank you for your reporting.